Come light it up, I'm ready to go. Come light it up, come light it up, I'm ready to go. Come light it up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vishank, and I'm very excited to be here at Data Nova in 2024. And I'm here to unveil the Dell Data Lakehouse, which we announced earlier this year. Just for introduction purposes, my name is Vishank. I'm a product manager in the AI and data solutions product management team at Dell Technologies, and I lead the Dell Data Lakehouse product as part of my key responsibilities. Maybe we just start with understanding, what are leaders telling us about data and AI right now. And we at Dell have been doing a ton of surveys for our customers and the leaders, and what they've been telling us is frankly not that surprising. A lot of customers are saying they're using AI and generative AI in their personal life. But when we ask them about how often they use it at work, that numbers tends to drop to about 63%. And when you ask them why, a lot of the people tend to say it's really because of the fact that there's a lot of potential in generative AI, but there's a lot of concern as well around the data that's going into it, and they really want to work on AI that's trained on their enterprise data, not generic publicly available data. And so, about 78% of them actually feel that training on the private data that they have within their company is what's going to make them more successful. And when you ask where that data is, a lot of them say that that's typically on premise, and so they do prefer a on premise or a hybrid model for generative AI and therefore data management. And so it's becoming fairly clear that the differentiator is really the data. And when companies move from a model-centric or a code-centric approach to more a data-focused approach for AI, they tend to unlock a lot of the value of AI models. So really, the efficacy of your AI project hinges upon how good your data is. And clearly, the winners are likely going to be those who are able to leverage the proprietary data that often is stored on premise. But having said that, we all know that is a very, very challenging task. It's a tall order simply because of the kind of situation we found ourselves in. That situation is represented with this. You may have seen this before. This is from FirstMark, which is, I think, an early stage venture capital company. They tend to put out these landscape views of all the companies that are out there. And this view has been expanding year after year. And at this point, it barely fits into a single slide. And that's just part of the problem. When enterprises go out and look to modernize their data strategy, this is what they face with, a plethora of choices, a lot of interoperability issues. And so there's a lot of challenges that enterprises are facing. So we at Dell, we thought about how do we look at this a little bit differently. Now you may be thinking, first of all, what is Dell doing here? Dell has been either a laptop company or a enterprise infrastructure company, and those are both true. But we realized that I think we're not just a enterprise infrastructure company. We're also a data company, because a majority of the world's data, especially in data centers, lives on our platform. They live on our storage, and so it's imperative for us to go help customers in the next part of their data journey, which is to activate the data and find value out of that data. And when we looked at the landscape, we said, how could we do this a little differently than what's already been going on? Clearly, another vendor that comes along and says, move all your data to our platform and we will fix all your problems for you, is just not a good answer anymore. Because I think people have heard that over years and years, and none of them have really worked. So we started off with a couple of key tenets of our strategy that we knew would help us differentiate and help drive differentiated customer value. First one was this notion of federation and then consolidation. And that's really key, because the data across environments in most enterprises is distributed, and it's becoming increasingly distributed. Data silos are growing. It's becoming very challenging to keep managing access and governance across all of those. And instead of going on 5-year journeys of consolidating the data into a single data lake, what I think customers need is an ability to both federate, which means going out and reaching out into the data sources wherever they live and being able to access and query them, but also then consolidating the 20% of the data that gets you 80% of the value. And being able to do that onto an open high performance S3 storage, which has open formats, and having a engine that can do both, being able to federate as well as query the data directly off of the lake. Um, of course, when you have the amount of power with having federated access to all of your data, you need to manage and have some governance across that power, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So we knew that we had to have built-in security and fine-grained access control in the lakehouse itself. And then finally, all of the things that I just mentioned across open formats and engines and storage and access control should not come across as 5 different pieces of a puzzle that a customer has to deploy and manage on their own. It should be easy to deploy, easy to buy, easy to stand up and keep going and even upgrade and lifecycle manage. And so that's where we thought Dell as a company has delivered a ton of value over the years, and we thought we can replicate that here, and that's exactly what we've done. And so what we introduced earlier this year is what we call the Dell Data Lakehouse. It is based on the technology that we have from our amazing friends at Starburst. What it is essentially a turnkey solution for Starburst, as well as storage, as well as all of the other management capabilities, all into a single platform. So we start with the key piece at the top middle there, which is the Dell Data Analytics Engine, or DDAE. And that's powered by our partnership with Starburst. Of course, that runs on Dell servers, which are tailored to the workload. And those servers are essentially doing 2 things that I just talked about: a federated query, which is combining data from multiple sources and exposing it as a SQL endpoint, but it's also helping you extract and isolate the data from those sources and store that in the second box below that, which is the Dell Lakehouse S3 storage. Now, those could be one of our most popular file storage platforms out there called PowerScale, or it could be our leading object storage platform like ECS and ObjectScale. Either way, the data that's in that S3 storage is in an open format, and that's Iceberg or Delta Lake or Hoodie. And you're able to use the analytics engine powered by Starburst to go query that and structure that from raw data to high quality gold data sets to power your dashboards or your AI workflows. And along with that, we have built-in access control, like I said. A huge amount of work goes into maintaining scalability and interoperability. We have a built-in meta store, and of course, we have the turnkey experience that we'll talk about in a little bit. Combining all of that brings to you the Lakehouse, which is a very easy turnkey solution for on-premise customers. And then in July, we actually introduced Warp Speed. And if you've been following Starburst, then I'm sure you already know Warp Speed is this amazing technology that autonomously indexes and caches data and gets you really, really high performance directly up on top of the lake. So combining all of these great features together really gets customers an amazing, easy to use Lakehouse ready to go on day one. Now, I talked a little bit about how easy and turnkey this is, and let me talk a little bit more about why that's important. If you look at the current state of data platforms today, you really have to worry about a ton of complexity from a number of variations in the stack. If you just imagine, if I have to stand up a lakehouse, I need to get my own servers, my own storage, figure out my networking, get an operating system, a Kubernetes flavor, multiple databases, multiple query engines, and open formats, and all of them have a life of their own. They all update over time, and sometimes a change in one can impact the other. And so IT teams really face this growing pain and growing challenge of maintaining interoperability across these stacks, but also making sure you're able to modernize to the latest version so that you're able to pick up all the amazing innovation. And so going from thousands and thousands of variations to a single one helps reduce complexity, but it also eliminates any unexpected costs down the line. And so by shifting all the heavy lifting that IT would do to Dell, we're able to deliver a ton of value. Um, and all of that complexity condenses down into a very simple to use GUI, which is our control center. We call it the Dell Data Lakehouse system software. And the system software essentially provides a ton of out of the box benefits. Um, because it is built on top of an operating system in Kubernetes, we actually give you all of the amazing benefits without exposing you to any of the complexity. So built-in redundancy for high availability, backups, encryption, uh, out of the box monitoring, alerting, logging, etc. So all the things that you would have to manage on your own, you get this out of the box. In addition to that, because all of the other control planes are embedded, you don't really have to expose yourself to any of those control planes, which means the learning curve is very easy. You get full stack support from Dell across the board, which means support from the server software all the way to the operating system, the Kubernetes, including the Dell Data Analytics Engine. Imagine a single point of support for everything. 1-800-Dell. That's the simplicity that we're able to provide by bringing this platform to you. Now, I talked a little bit about day two operations. Now, a lot of IT teams have to go through this exercise of operating the cluster, monitoring it, scaling it, which means we may have to add or remove nodes over time. Constantly running health checks to make sure that every component, including a drive, a power component, the BIOS, all are working in sync with each other, and then making sure that you take them from a known state to another known state. This system software is the peace of mind that IT admins have been looking for from a data platform perspective, and that's really what we're providing. All of this to say, we have three big outcomes that we were shooting for when we started. One was we wanted to make sure the time to production, the time to value is rapid, and we do that because we're already deploying a fully validated stack from our factories. Number two, we wanted to save time in downtime, which means having better monitoring, better regression testing, and making sure that those upgrades don't break your system, so that you don't spend valuable time troubleshooting. And then finally, of course, on a day-to-day basis, you spend less time managing the platform in itself, and having to deal with just a single vendor versus multiple vendors. Finally, on the infrastructure side, I know what's sometimes very important, especially when these data platforms become more and more critical, is high availability. So we have built in high availability at multiple levels. Obviously, at the hardware level, we have components in our servers and in our storage which are highly available, which means we can handle failures of most components. Of course, at the cluster level, we can handle node failures, whether that's a coordinator or a worker or a control plane node from Kubernetes perspective. But also from a query level, we have fault tolerant execution, which means even if a query fails due to some problem, we can restart that query from the point where it stopped and continue on. And I know some customers have asked for this, which is site level disaster recovery, which means if my entire data center has gone down, how do I keep working? And so we're bringing in that level of availability as well. So that's going to be a really exciting feature pretty soon. I talked a little bit about warp speed at the beginning. Of course, as you know, the warp speed feature drives both a performance gain, and so we've seen about 3x to 5x improvement in certain queries. I think other people have seen even more. But we have also seen a reduction in cluster size, and I actually like that fact even more than the performance. It means that you can deliver the same query SLA in a much smaller cluster form than before, and that means better efficiency and potentially even using that same cluster for multiple business units, multiple workloads. So that efficiency gain is really what's really exciting to me. Of course, as you know, this works on top of our S3 storage, and that's what we're supporting, which is our ECS, OpticsScale, or PowerScale platforms. And remember, these are market-leading platforms with the highest market share in their category, so widely popular out in the enterprise. So in the last maybe 6 to 7 months, we've spent a lot of time, talking to customers, talking to partners, So I wanted to share one story that we were really excited about because we were able to demonstrate, tremendous value to this customer. And this one comes from EMEA, from Switzerland, in fact, and they're a disability insurance company, and they were dealing with a lot of data sets that were coming to them every day, being refreshed. I'm taking terabytes of data, and being distributed across multiple data stores. And the answer that they were looking for usually resided in a combination of these data stores. And so to bring this data together, they were using another tool to physically ETL the data to a single place. And then in order to power their dashboards and make them run more responsively, they were even using a third tool to then index that data. So you can imagine just the amount of tool proliferation, as well as a general slowdown. In fact, one of the big challenges that they faced was, what happens when you add a data source into this mix? How long does it take to work that in? And so we went in with a few workshops, a few demos, and we really sat down with them and tried to understand what their workflow was, where we could integrate versus replace. And it was pretty clear that our Dell Data Lakehouse would be a natural fit. And it took not long for us to actually get in there and get this up and running. And the results are fantastic, right? So immediate simplification of the stack, right? Imagine 3 or 4 different tools down to a single tool that can do everything for you. Easy connection to any data source. We know Starburst is very good at federated access to any data source, so that was an important win. And providing faster answers with built-in indexing that we already have. All of this led them to having an ROI, which is again less than a year, which was transformative for them. So really excited about this journey, and I think we're gonna do a lot more with this customer in the future. So I wanted to maybe just wrap this up with talking about where we think data lakehouses need to go. And this is sort of my take on it. Just having looked at the market in the last couple of years, and especially considering generative AI, there are a few areas where I think we're looking to invest. Number one is improving the data discovery, and I'm not just talking about structured data, but I'm referring to the wide swaths of unstructured data that is often sitting out there undiscovered because it's very hard to reach. And the way we want to enable that is exposing as much metadata as we can about all of the unstructured data, making it searchable, and then taking the next step and actually exposing not just the system metadata, but also the content level metadata, looking inside some of those files and exposing to you what's in it so you can filter down to the data set that you care about. Take, for example, being able to know where did these files come from, who made it, when was it last updated, and does it contain any sensitive information that I need to worry about? Being able to have that much power over all of your unstructured data is going to help improve discovery, search, and therefore filtering for the data set that you really want to drive to, say, a fine-tuning run or a training run. And then, of course, extending that idea a little bit further, you could even start to think about exposing that data as raw data, as a vector, as a chunk, in any other form for whatever workflow you're looking for. Idea number 2 is expanding to other types of transformations. Obviously, we've gone very deep into SQL-based transformation. That's what Starburst is really good at today. But we're also extending our ability to go into other batch and real-time data pipelines. But knowing that when we do that, it has to be integrated back into the platform, which means the same access control that people are used to, the same open formats that everybody's used to, that all has to be coming together in a seamless fashion. And so that's sort of idea number 2. Idea number 3 is sort of my personal favorite, which is if you think about sort of the growth of LLMs, and I know we've talked to death about LLMs at this point, but I feel like there's a silent revolution also happening, which is the improvement in the transformer models that have become so capable of looking inside data sets and exposing to you what's inside the data. Being able to, say, do optical character recognition, right, OCR, or audio transcription or translation, or identifying objects inside images or videos. These things used to take humans a long time to properly find and label and search. But now starting to use models to extract that value out of that unstructured data will make that data so much more usable. So imagine if you have hours of call logs and you're trying to train a model to become your customer agent on the phone, and you want to train that agent on, the best customer calls you've had, not the ones that you don't really want to emulate. For example, you need to know from those hours of recordings, which calls were actually ending with a good result for the customer, which ones had sensitive information, what were the key themes, what were some good habits that your agents were doing. Having access to this information is going to make that training run better and better. So that's idea number 3. And then idea number 4 is all of this that I've just mentioned should continue to be just as easy to deploy and maintain and lifecycle manage as the existing platform today. And so, putting automation and enterprise-ready features again at the forefront will just make these things a lot more easier to maintain. So that's all I had. We're very thankful for your time, for listening to me and taking a deep dive into the Dell Technologies Dell Data Lakehouse product. If there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to this website or find me on LinkedIn.